the scalding water streamed down through my fingers. It was the nanny. She had deliberately poured boiling water on me, just to test which of us my 3 brothers would choose, me or her daughter. Before I could even process what had happened, her daughter, with red-rimmed eyes, accused me of slandering her mother and looking down on the poor, then turned to leave. But what I never expected was that my brothers wouldn't even ask if I was okay. They immediately started yelling at me. In that moment, the physical pain seemed insignificant. It was then I realized their love for me had long since faded. I used to be the apple of their eye. They even domineeringly told me that when I turned 24, I had to choose one of them to marry. Back then, I was over the moon. I secretly wrote those words in my diary and couldn't wait for my 24th birthday. But after the nanny and her daughter moved in, everything changed. Just because the nanny had once saved my brothers from a car accident and nearly died, they showered all their affection on her daughter and left me out in the cold. I kept comforting myself, thinking they were just repaying a debt of gratitude and that things would eventually go back to normal. So on the morning of my 24th birthday, I clutched my household register and went to the civil affairs office, ready to fulfill our childhood promise. But as closing time approached, none of my brothers showed up. Instead, I received a text from her, "Don't bother waiting." The photo attached showed my 3 brothers fussing over her because she had a cold. They had completely forgotten about me, their sister, waiting alone at the civil affairs office. Looking at that photo, I suddenly didn't want to humiliate myself anymore. As I stood there feeling lost, a man approached me and asked if I'd been waiting long. He said if I wanted to get married, I could consider him. Thinking about my brother's coldness over the years, I made a reckless decision. Even a stranger would be better than them, right? Little did I know, he was a world-renowned billionaire. We had a whirlwind marriage. Before parting ways, we agreed to hold our wedding in 2 weeks. I told him I wanted to cut ties with my brothers as soon as possible, and he agreed with a smile. I later found out he had been secretly in love with me for over a decade. I had hoped to spend my last 2 weeks at home saying a proper goodbye to my brothers, but when I returned, I found all my belongings thrown outside the door. They told me her health hadn't fully recovered after the accident, and she needed a sun-filled room to rest. I didn't argue or make a scene. I simply turned and moved into the servants' quarters. In the past, I would have thrown a fit, but now I was just exhausted. 7 days before the wedding, my fiancé called and asked me to come home after my hospital checkup to try on the wedding gown he had designed personally. But the moment I stepped inside, I saw her wearing my dress, standing in the living room. I completely lost it. I rushed over and angrily demanded she take it off immediately. The moment she started crying, my brothers panicked. They shielded her protectively and scolded me instead. "It's just a wedding dress. You probably bought it just to trick us into marrying you." They even said they'd pay triple the price to buy the dress for her. I shouted desperately, "This gown was designed by my husband especially for me. It's priceless. Take it off now." She finally took it off, but then she picked up a pair of scissors and cut a slash through the dress, claiming it accidentally tore while I was taking it off. I knew she had done it on purpose, but my oldest brother stared coldly at me and said, "Stop acting. You don't even have a husband." He demanded I call my husband right then and ask how much the dress cost. Little did they know, the price of that gown was far beyond what their second-rate wealthy family could afford. I tried calling my fiancé, but no one answered. My brothers grew even more smug, saying I couldn't keep up the act, and took her out to buy a dress 100 times better than my ragged gown. It was only later that my fiancé texted me back. He had been in a meeting. I apologized and told him the dress had been ruined, but he wasn't angry. He just said he'd have another one sent over immediately. 3 days before the wedding, I finally discovered that my parents' only keepsake, a bracelet, was being auctioned. I thought having it with me at the wedding would make everything feel complete, but at the auction, that scheming girl ended up buying the bracelet at a high price. She could clearly see how much it meant to me, yet she deliberately let it slip from her hand, shattering it on the ground. Then she picked up the broken pieces and threw them into the pond across from us, right in front of my eyes. I completely lost control. I rushed madly into the pond to search for the fragments. I was soaked and frantic, while she stood on the bank laughing uncontrollably. When my brothers arrived and learned it was our parents' keepsake, they finally apologized. But how could I accept it? All I wanted was to leave that house as soon as possible. On the day of the wedding, I put on the newly delivered wedding gown and waited in my room for him to pick me up. My 3 brothers stood nearby, sneering, "Just wait here. Let's see if anyone comes to marry you by noon." The clock struck 12, and my fiancé still hadn't arrived. It seemed like they were just waiting to see me humiliated. But then I heard his voice, coming from outside the house. He was here.